So describe your role on Married with Children and how it evolved through the course of the series.
Boy, there, there were so many different roles as far as going through the process of the pilot, getting to know the network, as it itself was getting to know itself, brand new. It was quite the learning experience. First of all, we had found out that because a show fell through, and this seems to be a reoccurring theme in a lot of my career, because a show that they were doing fell through, they needed a fill-in show, and we didn't know this at the time, but that's what Married originally was. It was considered a fill-in show because one of their shows fell out at the last minute. They as a network, they had a definite start date that they were going to debut, and they wanted to debut with a full first slate, of course, so the process, it was very quick. It was, fortunately we had, like I said, this idea in our back pocket for a while, because I don't know whether we could have pulled this off. But as soon as we got the go-ahead to do this, we quickly wrote up the script, worked in conjunction with Garth. The way we worked with the networks before, every step of the way let them know what was going on, and rushed ourselves into casting through this. And the assembling of the cast, the Bundy family, came from as many directions. Katie, we found Katie because Ron's wife saw her on one of the later incarnations of a Mary Tyler Moore series. She played, sort of a hard-bitten news reporter with a cigarette in her mouth all the time. Thought she would work. Christina came from, I can't remember, it was a drama show. Faustino just came from just general casting, and Ed was the very last person we cast. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to go to taping, and remember, they were already in a hurry. They were supposed to go to taping in about 2 weeks, and we still did not have an out. But we must have seen every, quote, funny guy in Hollywood by the time, we ran into him. We were getting very, very discouraged, because I'd say 70% of the guys that came in to read for Al Bundy read it exactly like Ralph Cramden, because that's what they thought this character was, and which absolutely did not work. There were a couple of people that read it like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, which totally didn't work. But everybody seemed to want to throw in something. They just wanted to spike this, and the character was already big enough, as far as we were concerned, that we didn't need, the extra layer. We didn't need anybody kind of winking at the camera, with this character. And like I said, we were getting very, very discouraged, because now we started, by this point, seeing all the funny guys. We started seeing guys that, we'd never heard of, stand-up comics, brand new stand-up comics, people coming in. And I remember one day where we didn't see anybody. It was a very discouraging day. Toward the end of the day, actually, it was right after lunch. We got a phone call from casting, and they said, I got a guy I want you to see. His name is Ed O'Neill. And it was like, tremendous. Who's Ed O'Neill? And he said, well, he was the guy. Did you see Popeye Doyle? No. He said, well, he was the guy that played Popeye Doyle. Okay. What Popeye Doyle, is this a show? He said, no, it's a movie, it's a drama. I said, oh, we're seeing dramatic guys now. Said, good. So wake me when we get to the actual cartoon characters. I want to be here when Yosemite Sam comes in. I want to see how he does it. And they said, no, you want nothing, or you want to see Ed O'Neill? All right, we'll see Ed O'Neill. So he comes up. He dressed in jeans and a T-shirt, a white T-shirt. Literally had moons down to to his pants. So obviously, I like the guy. I said, already, I said, I like this guy. And the particular scene, he apologized. He said, look, I had a handball game. My agent called me at the last minute. I didn't have a chance to go home and change. Okay, fine. I had, I said, seen this scene written, by that time read, dozen different ways by 100 different guys. And it was a very simple scene, and all it entailed was, Al coming home from work, only to hear, his wife saying that, that they're going to meet the next door neighbors for the very first time, be on your best behavior. Al wanted to come home, watch the game, didn't want to do this, but, his wife made him. And we'd seen this, like I said, 100 different times. So Ed gets the script, and even before the first line, when he looked at the script, he pretended walking up his little walkway to the door outside. And what he did, the very first thing he did when he was getting into character, was he stood in front of his front door and literally went like this. Before he turned it. And right then, he didn't have to say another word. I said, he's got this part. Because the Al Bundy that I knew at the time, that Ron knew at the time, knew, and apparently that Ed O'Neill knew at the time, no matter what happened, when he opened that door, something horrible was going to be on the other side. There was no doubt. And there was no chance of it not being bad. So he's going to just sigh, and before he opens the door, what? And he's going to be right. And that sigh is basically what got Ed O'Neill the part. Now, I'm sure the network probably wanted someone, a little bit more well-known. I sort of understand that, but, this guy, as far as I was concerned, was this character. He eventually, he got the job. We did the pilot. We mixed reviews, and this is from the network. One of the contingencies that we had made as far as coming over to Fox, with this pilot, because I know everybody's in a hurry, everybody's scrambling, is that, if you're going to do this, because it is different, it is counterculture, we didn't want this notes based on testing this show. We have seen testing of a show ruin more potentially good sitcoms than anything else. I was never a believer in testing. I always believed that people who are the testees, are going to tell you exactly what they want you to hear. And that this is how they kept doing it year after year after year made me crazy. And we knew if this show was tested the way conventionally tested, it was not going to test well. And so we said we didn't want this, we didn't want this tested. They said fine. So, we did the pilot. Pilot itself, shooting went well. They wanted to test it, of course. Okay, I'm sorry.
Do you want to stop for 1 second? So you were talking about they wanted to test after you shot the pilot.
Right, they wanted to test after we shot the pilot, and we said fine. As long as it's understood that we make no changes based on any results of this testing, because we knew, what the testing was going to be. And a few days later, we were summoned into Fox, into the big room with the long table, and they brought their tester professor in there, and he had the graphs and the big stacks of papers that he passed out to everybody that showed the results of the testing. And the testing was pretty much what we thought it would be. And he kind of went through every single demographic that he had, which was an amazing amount. These guys, nothing if they're not into their research. And he droned on for about 45 minutes about, the results of the testing. And just like we thought, he summed it up by saying that, the show tested well, and that's exactly how he said it. The show tested well. However, if we could go back and somehow make it more clear that deep down the kids really did have respect for their parents, that Al deep down really did care for his wife, that deep down the entire family did really care for each other, that we could potentially have something special, at work here. And that's when Ron uttered, and I total credit, uttered the famous line, and we would have every other effing sitcom in the history of television. And with that, we got up and walked out. Now, when we walked out that door, we were convinced that this show would never, ever see the light of day, because with all of the Fox executives in here, we basically said to you guys, shove this right now. Already, you guys, you haven't even been on the air yet, and you lied. So you're technically, congratulations, you are now an official network. Because right out of the box, you're lying to the people, to what's supposed to be your team. You're an official network now. Congratulations, see ya. And so we left. And later on, we got a call from Garth, who sounded like he just went 12 rounds with Joe Frazier. They must have just killed him. Who are these guys? How dare they? The usual, and they were going to go on. He said, no, you don't have to. They did give us a few things that they said that they wanted us to change in relation to the pilot, which were okay. But they didn't want us to change anything. Now, of course, later on we found out, this entire network has to air in about 2 weeks. So, no, they're not going to change anything, but you can bet the minute they had anything, they could be one of those little books that we used to read as kids, that, the flip page book that animate. If they had one of those, we were the first things gone that they were, going to air. So, no, we didn't change. So we really didn't change much, And we did have to recast the Bud and Kelly characters, because the original Bud and Kelly, they weren't very, very happy with. I did skip that part. David Faustino Bud, that we all know, Christina Applegate Kelly, that we all know, were not the first Bud and Kellys. We had two other actors. They came later on after recasting, but they were, as you recall in the pilot, they weren't in very much. It was very easy to reshoot the scenes that they were in. And we did, and we delivered the pilot, and we kind of sat back and waited for whatever fate, was going to befall us. We didn't believe, by the way, that as a network, this was going to last. When we found out the affiliates they had at the time, a few of the other shows that they were going to air at the time, it was just, okay, all right, well, we're along for the ride. We were having fun. We liked the way the show turned out, We did notice something strange, though, that when it came to promotion, and that we felt that we were kind of getting a little bit short shrift when it came to promotion. Now, again, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. You know, we were kind of a last minute thought. Okay, so maybe publicity didn't have what it had with a lot of these other shows. Okay, so when you list your shows on premiere night, when you list them by title and then refer to us as and others, okay, all right, okay. So now, guys, we're getting Uncle Mikey just close. The fuse is about right here, but okay, I understand. You know, mitigating circumstances. All right, fine. So the show, if you can remember when Fox premiered, what they did was, you know, they aired the drama 21 Jump Street first, you know, with Johnny Depp and company, and then they started airing their sitcoms, and I think they aired each one of their sitcoms multiple times. You know, and we had a little party, you know, at one of our watching the premiere of Fox. We knew what our demographics were. You know, we knew that on most of the country we were, I mean, God, we're on like channel 1, channel like 73, you know, the church channel. I mean, we were all over the place, you know. So, you know, we weren't expecting a lot. But, you know, when the ratings did come in, we did notice that of all of the shows, you know, the ratings were minuscule, of course. We had the best ones, though. You know, so we took great solace in that. I mean, that of all of the shows, because we did get the least amount of promotion. I mean, that was not us, you know, imagining this. And the next week, the ratings were a little bit higher, but again, of all of the shows, and I'm not counting Jump Street. I can't remember what Jump Street did. But of the sitcoms, we were the #1 sitcom. And this happened every week, in the ratings would up a little bit, up a little bit, up a little bit. It was kind of amazing that in the bigger cities, where we had the better affiliates and you could actually see the show as well as hear it, you know, the ratings were surprisingly large. Still, you know, generally, nationally, no one knew who we were. I remember we, just to reward ourselves, we went out and bought ourselves Married with Children T-shirts with our own money. I mean, we went and found, you know, a designer who did the logo, you know, on our black T-shirts, and you know, we would walk around, you know, proudly wearing our T-shirts. And one day I think I might have been walking down the street in either West Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, or something, and I was wearing my T-shirt. And a woman from across the street called out, hey, yeah, you. And I would turn around, and she looked at the T-shirt. Married, did that say Married with Children? Yeah. She said, oh. And then she walked across the street. And I'm like, hey, man, for the first time, you know, there's some recognition. Somebody actually saw this. And she comes up and goes, I just want to tell you, very, very, very few times have I seen someone who is proud enough of their family to actually wear a T-shirt. You know, I'm just blown away that you care enough about your family that you would advertise. I just want to say that. because there's so many people that don't care. And then she just walked away. Thank you. You know, and I just took that with me for a few more weeks. But gradually, we did start getting, notoriety. Now, the critics, it was funny, the critics just reflected the research. Half of them thought that this was, quote unquote, brilliant because it was so counterculture. And the other half thought, well, surely this is a sign of the impending apocalypse. I mean, this could not be. I mean, this is the end of Western civilization as we know it. So I'm thinking this is good. I said, anytime you have this kind of divergence, there's hardly anyone in the middle, about this show. People either seem to think that it is very, very special, or, literally the worst thing that has ever been on television, since its invention. I thought I take that as a compliment, because there's, again, at least we're eliciting a response here. Every week, the ratings would grow, but always, we were number one sitcom, for that night. Now, there were a few things that, again, still, that were ongoing that I thought was odd. Another thing I thought was odd was the absolute total lack of fan mail. And, occasionally we would ask, just anything? No, anything. Okay, all right. The total lack of response from the network, I thought was kind of odd. I mean, obviously we weren't Cosby. I mean, we weren't getting, 35 rating, 40 shares. But, we're doing better than everybody else. I think that there'd be some acknowledgement. I mean, even when we were doing mediocre on NBC with It's Your Move, we would get a call, they acknowledging that, that we were mediocre. I'd take that. But we didn't get a whole lot. But we were doing fine. And sooner we got a pickup, which I guess was an acknowledgement, but it was very officious, very cold. It was almost, you're picked up for the rest of the season. Congratulations, click. Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. And again, I'm thinking, well, these guys, they have a lot on their plate, brand new network, a lot of brand new shows. Maybe they don't know how to be a network yet. Maybe they don't know how to treat. I don't know. But, screw it, we're having fun. Okay. This actually kind of went on for a while. What we found out, and again, this is hindsight, we knew that Married was kind of like a fill. What we didn't know was that the powers that be at Fox at the time hated the show, because this was not the kind of show that they wanted to be the foundation of their network. They didn't want this to be the flagship. Hey, this is what Fox is about. This horrible, horrible blue collar family. They wanted it to be a little bit more cosmopolitan. Later on, a show, if you remember, the Tracy Ullman show came along. This is a year or two later. That was the kind of show they wanted. They wanted a show that people that lived in townhouses in New York could stand and discuss, holding their, Zimas in their hand, discussing did you just see the brilliance? Is she not brilliant? Is she not? That's what they wanted, And to the Bundys, it was kind of like, well, you know what? I just planted my yard, and look what moved next door. Are you kidding me? Really? Do we not have a housing association? Is there nothing, really, is this what we're going to have? Is this going to be Fox? And that's kind of what it was. But unfortunately for them, every week, not only were we number one, but the distance between us and what was number two would grow every single week. And, this went on. Well, actually, it went on for several years, but in the early days, this went on until, the famous Ricolta incident, in the third season. The first two seasons of Married were probably the most fun that I've ever had doing television. Because even though, we weren't getting the notoriety simply because of, we were airing how we were airing, we were doing what I always wanted to do. This was always, to me, what, situation comedy should be like. When we got the reputation as being not the Cosbys, that's when that he doesn't like the Cosbys stuff started. And like I said earlier, it's not that I didn't like the Cosbys. I didn't like the shows that wanted to be the Cosbys. And I would always address that by saying, look, I have seen the Cosbys. Cosbys are fine for what they are. I mean, clearly people like the Cosbys. But let's not ignore the fact that there is a great segment of people in this country that loathe the Cosbys. No one can live up to the Cosbys. I have literally seen people argue that have watched the Cosbys. Why can't you be like, well, look how sensitive he is. Well, look, she has a career too, and she can take time. They're not real, people. They don't exist. But people, that's how they get their jollies. I'm going to sit and watch these characters. So finally, now we have a family that everyone can live up to. So we're saving marriages across the country. Clearly, we can ignore the children and have Tang for breakfast. We can aspire to that. We can do that. So, and that's what this show is about. That's all. We weren't trying to make any grand statements. No issues. Nobody was going to die of AIDS. There wasn't going to be a drive-by. Bud wasn't going to join a gang. And people watching that show actually got comfortable with the fact for at least a half an hour. I know that nothing horrible, nothing dramatic is going to happen. This is going to be a half hour. I can basically shut my mind off and sit there and just know that I'm going to be entertained. And that's all, to me, TV has, at least my career, that's all I ever aspired to. And everything else was just gravy. I didn't care about awards. I didn't care about, I didn't care about any kind of fame. I didn't care about legacies. As long as people, watched what we did and just laughed, and you just said, a half an hour, we're going to forget about, I'm not making enough money. My kids are making me crazy. I'm just going to forget about how much I hate my job, how much I hate, oh my God, my mother-in-law's coming. All this stuff for at least a half an hour, and just watch a family, fictional, that has it worse than I do. And I can laugh at them. So maybe we were the first real reality show ever on television. Maybe because people would just sit and go, well, at least I'm not, at least I'm not them. And for about 2 years, I guess, Fox, had to ride with this. Then the Ricolta, thing happened. And to say we were not affected by that is completely untrue because, that's when everything hit the fan.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Well, I made the mistake of coming into the office one morning happy, because that's usually all it takes. You know, it's just unlike Ed, who had at least the sense to sigh the character before going in. I rode the elevator up, you know, basically without a care in the world. I should have known right then. And when I walked in, I was greeted with the news that some lady from Bloomfield Hills, Illinois, there's an article in the paper I can't remember if it was the Trades or the Times, but some lady from Bloomfield, Illinois had written a advertiser, you know, about an episode of Married with Children, you know, unhappy, and I think it stopped there. So that was sort of greeted by and that they had gotten the advertiser to pull its product, you know, from Married with Children, and which I thought was, wow, you know, one lady did that. Yeah, okay. I still didn't get it, you know, that this was going to be as big as it was, but we started getting phone calls, you know, through the day, you know, about people wanting to know about this. Then we got a phone call from the company that basically issued a gag order that we weren't supposed to respond to any of these calls. Now, before we had gotten that gag order, we responded to one of these calls. Not me personally, but, you know, a couple of the other producers, apparently a lady had called and said that she did not like last night's episode, you know, thought it was tasteless, and the other producer said, well, you know, you are free to watch something else, which apparently was not the right answer. I guess the right answer was supposed to be, oh, we'll cancel the show immediately, ma'am. And because they didn't get that, apparently she was even more upset and called the company, and, you know, that's when things started to come down. The story grew. A couple of other advertisers, you know, pulled their stuff. And the show, later on we found out what the lady said she was, because she started doing, you know, the morning TV circuit, and talked about the problems that she had. Well, apparently the problem that she had was she had her kids. She didn't see the episode, it turned out. She had her kids planted in front of the television, and while she was on the treadmill in the other room, and the kids kind of saw the episode, and she was horrified, you know, at what the kids saw. And so this is what started the rampage. Now, naturally, my response to that was, well, why would you take your children, young children, and plant them in front of a television, having no idea what's on, and be in another room? That's, to me, not bad television, that's bad parenting, which again apparently was the wrong answer. You know? Once things got to the network, you know, they tried to do, I guess, the politically correct thing. You know, political correctness was beginning to ooze into like every facet of television at this point. So their only statement that they would issue publicly is that we stand behind, you know, the writers, our show, but behind the scenes, they were demanding that we change just about everything about the show. That caused a problem with us, because not only contractually did that go against things that were previously agreed to, it was just wrong. And that's really what started, unfortunately, the acrimony that became chronic between ourselves and Fox at the time. That's when we found out a lot of things. You know, we did find out that that's when we found out that this wasn't the kind of show they wanted to be a flagship. That's also when we found out from a runner who will obviously remain nameless that they were holding our fan mail. We were getting fan mail, but unless it was bad, it wasn't being forwarded to us because they wanted us to change it. They wanted us to follow, you know, the notes and the testing results that we'd gotten 2 years ago. They wanted us to be Father Knows Best, or somehow some version of the Tracy Ullman show done family style. That's what they really, really wanted. And this was this was their opportunity, they thought, you know, to get that, because now they had a full-blown controversy, at least in their mind. I just thought it was just silly. And first of all, I thought, well, yeah, at least people are talking about the show now. At least this lady, when she sees a Married with Children shirt, doesn't think that I'm talking about my wife and kids. You know, now they know what it's about. It's good, isn't it? Well, no, apparently not. It wasn't good enough, you know, and that became a problem. We did acquiesce and switch some episodes around. We tried to do what we considered the least offensive in their eyes, you know, episodes first. So we did juggle some things around, but, you know, we weren't about to change, you know, the concept of the show now. I mean, we were actually happy to finally receive the notoriety. First of all, I was surprised and actually impressed that one person could do that. But in a way, I'm kind of thankful because, you know, we are dealing in a country that, you know, they don't like being told by somebody that lives in a big house in Bloomfield, Illinois, what shows they can and can't and should and shouldn't watch. I'm Fox. I'm relishing that. But, you know, they didn't play it that way.
So how did you move forward from there and stay on the air for so many more years?
Ratings. You know, and you know, and we knew, and everyone knows, that if you're an advertiser, you know, if you're selling soap, and it's easy to stand up and say, you know, as a corporation, we are offended. We will not. We'll abide, and fingers are going, and we're not gonna. But then the ratings come in, and it's like, hey guys, you know, can we get, you know, another 2 years, you know? And eventually, that's exactly what happened. I mean, these guys, what are they gonna turn this down, and just say no, we don't want. Yeah, the ratings are great, but, you know, we don't want this money. It's dirty money. You know, come on, really? So they came back. The audience every week would basically double, because now, you know, we're on the cover of TV Guide all of a sudden. You know, everyone knows they're doing the morning talk shows. I was a little upset that, you know, we never got a chance to really respond, because a lot of the things that, you know, she was saying were false. You know, she never really did, and later on you found it out, she never really did see the episode herself. A lot of the things, just things that she thought would happen, or I don't know, maybe she saw it later on, and just, you know, to get on television more, and just sort of exaggerate just a little bit here, a little bit there. I didn't like the fact that we weren't afforded the opportunity to respond, but that's the way they decided to play it. But nevertheless, now we're getting huge ratings. I mean, in comparison to what even we were getting. We were getting ratings now that were very close to the ratings that the big boy networks were getting. So, in a way, this completely backfired, and I think they were mad. I think this didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. And I think that they were mad, and unfortunately, I think that this rift, followed through, for the entire life of the show, because it was clear, they weren't going, we weren't going away. I mean, now we had legions. We had letters when we finally got them. We had gotten letters from people who I think they were creepingly, serious, that they wanted her phone, they wanted her address. They would have killed her. I mean, they were angry that somebody was, attacking the Bundys, and that this show might get pulled off the air because of this. We actually saw now, that the love for this family. I mean, they didn't need us to tell them that Al and Peg really cared about each other. They didn't need us to say that, the kids really had respect for their parents. I mean, they didn't, but they didn't need us. They were okay with that. They were fine with that. They were smarter than that. We used to get notes, or at least suggestions of, are we really going to do this type of thing? Because it's kind of anti-woman here, and we're really the women are gonna. Do you really think that the women in this country are at all threatened by a fictional shoe salesman? Really? You think when Al goes on a rampage about a fat woman, that women are sitting at home watching this, and now they have low self-esteem? Really? He's a shoe salesman. This isn't the president. This is a shoe salesman who, by the way, is not a real shoe salesman. I'm gonna give him a little more credit than that. That they could not only sit and laugh with them, they could certainly sit and laugh at him. I don't think they need Al to say, "I'm just kidding," after every joke. Or really, Peg, baby, you're the great. Come on, really? If that's what you think about the audience, then I can't. There's nothing I can do about that. I don't think that they think that way. I think that a little more credit than that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the physical production of the show and the cast and crew. Talk a little bit about working with Ron Levitt and his style and sensibilities and things.
Ron and I were very like-minded in that we really did not like, traditional sitcoms. Well, let me put it this way, traditional at the time, sitcoms. We didn't, like the gentle, domestic, humor. We obviously, from the earlier days, we didn't care much for, issue shows. So we were very like-minded. We had no problem doing silly, things. Making the audience laugh was our first priority. Neither one of us really cared about image, especially our own. We weren't showbiz folk. We didn't care to be seen. We didn't lunch at Michael's. We didn't we didn't have dramatically lit headshots of ourselves. We didn't wear the traditional Hollywood, apparel, with the shirts down to here and the bling and all of the. We didn't have our hair moussed and all of that crap. We were guys who literally told that deliveries were in the back when we would go to a meeting at Fox. The guard in the front would take a look at us and tell us that deliveries were. They said, "No, we're here to see Barry Diller." No, wait a minute. And then they would call upstairs and okay. Yeah, we were those guys. We didn't try to be those guys. It's just that at that point, it didn't matter to me. If I wanted to be a celebrity myself, I'd try to be an actor. I don't want to be a celebrity. I don't want to walk down the street and be, "Hey, aren't you?" No, go, go away. No. My purpose, I'm here just to entertain in the way that I can entertain. This is the way that I entertain. And, things worked well because particularly in the very beginning, we were absolutely like-minded. Now, I was more of, if you think about this as a football team, where Ron quarterbacked the offense, I quarterbacked the defense. Whenever there was an attack, whenever there was trouble, and we were going to play good cop, bad cop, I was the bad cop. Because I truly cared not about what anyone thought. I totally understood this show. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was now getting such positive feedback from the audience, and that's what I cared about, that they were being entertained. And I remember, my father who would come in and, not want to hear bad things. These are the people that I was working for. And when they were happy, I was doing my job. Didn't care about anything else. So when someone would try to interfere with that, it would be me, who would go and be the bad cop. And that's how we had to, that's how we chose to run things for, most of the show. Anyone who knew Ron would tell you, Ron, Ron was, you would not have any idea that he was the executive producer, the producer. You would not have any idea that he was anything. I mean, maybe you would think he was one of the cafeteria guys, that stocked the machines, in the cafeteria. That's really what he was. T-shirt, jeans, Marlboro, Coke. If you just said those 4 words, most people that knew would say, "Yeah, that's Ron Levitt. Yeah, I know that guy."
Nice.
Funny as all get out. Obviously you had to, edit about 50% of the stuff that he would pitch, or else we'd probably still be in jail today. But very unique person.
Did any of the story ideas for the show come from your own life?
Oh yeah, I mean the story ideas from the show came from. Every one of us had at least 1 or 2 stories that came directly from our lives. Sure. As far as my life, one of the stories that I recall the most was, and this has happened to a lot of people. Have you ever been walking down the street or like walking past something and you hear a song that's coming, it could be coming from a car radio, the apartment, and it's a song that you liked. You hadn't heard this song in 20 years, but you liked it. You heard like 2 or 3 lyrics, and then either the car would drive off or the window would shut before you'd hear the title, and now this thing is in your, this thing is planted in your head like a railroad spike. And you're just saying, what is the name of that song? I love that song. And you're literally walking up to people going, what, quick, what's this? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they're staring at you, and they're, lawful? And you're just trying, anything you can do to find out. We did an episode, because that's what happened to me. There was a song that I heard that I hadn't heard in a long time, and we basically did that to Al, and me being as obsessive as I am about it, because once something like that happens to me, I will leave this entire city in ruins to find this. I will leave this town a flaming, just a flaming, stinking mess before I give up finding what I'm looking for. No amount of money, no human life, I don't care. I am going to find out. I'm going to find the title of this song. I don't care how many people die. And that's what we did with Al. And that was a song. That was an episode, for instance, that came directly from my life. These episodes, my favorite, are episodes that can happen to just about anybody. That trigger something and just go, oh yeah, that happens. Those are as wild as we got on Married with Children. My favorite episodes always started out grounded in something real, really real. Jeez, I'm sorry about this. I thought I turned it off. My favorite episodes are the ones that started that came from reality. Another example of that, one of the shows, the episodes that, or infamous episodes that we're most known for, was the Santa episode. Do you remember the Santa, where Santa Claus was going to make an appearance at the local mall, the mall that Al worked in, and the way he was going to make his appearance was he was going to jump out of an airplane with, a sack of goodies, for the kids that had gathered there. Well, it didn't quite happen because the chute didn't open, and he landed in Al's yard and died in a tree. This literally happened to one of the writers on the show when he was a kid. He lived in Illinois, and the Santa was going to make an appearance at the mall by jumping out of a plane, and actually got killed when he landed on top of the mall. His chute didn't open, thereby apparently scarring about 400 or 500 children for life. I know what it did to this writer, to this particular writer. That's where this idea came from. Another idea, actually a couple of them, came from Ron's. Ron says this was his dad. I actually think this was a little bit him. A lot of the episodes where Al is determined to get something fixed himself. I'm not going to call the handyman. It's a plumbing thing. How hard can this be? Those type of episodes. And he, winds up, having the entire block condemned. A lot of those, seem to come from Ron. So and that's why I like the writer's table where everyone gets to pitch in, because that's the only way you're going to really hear these stories. They hear, and the writers go back in their lives and pull, a lot of episodes from there. And all it takes is, just the seed. We've done stories, the Buck getting neutered story, it came from just a one sentence pitch. You just said, because you knew with someone like Al, a character like Al, having to have his dog neutered would be just a major issue for him. Because how is he not going to identify with this? He's married, therefore he's neutered. Now the dog is, so that's how Al would think of it. So all we needed was that one sentence. Most of our better episodes, were pulled from the lives of the writing staff. Now, granted, we had the writing staff. We did not have a typical writing staff, as you might imagine. We hired writers that nobody else would hire. You know, if we got word that a certain writer was available, and the reason this was available because he or she had been fired from every single show that they worked on because of personality issues, that's who we wanted. And we wound up with a staff of them.
That's amazing.
It
That's
certainly
great.
was, you know, because that does come with its problems also, but that's what we needed for a show like this.
Let's talk a little bit about the cast and the characters. Can you just run through the list and just give me your thoughts on the character and the actor? Ed O'Neill, Al Bundy.
Al Bundy, we wanted him, again, to be every man. The best thing anyone could say about Al Bundy, and we would get this, 100 times a day, is you guys must be peeking into our living rooms. That is so much my fill in the blank. That's my husband. That's my brother. That's things like putting hands down his pants when he watches television. We'd get letters, oh my God, I have an uncle that does that. I thought he was the only one. That was what we wanted Al to be. We wanted Al to rail against the system. We wanted him to say what all of us deep down are thinking. And we wanted him to be the opposite of what most sitcom dads at the time really, really were. I mean, we wanted him to hate his job with good reason, not want to come home with good reason. One of the things that always made us crazy was the old sitcom, when the husband does something wrong and the wife says, sleeping on the couch tonight, and the husband's like going, oh, no, I'm sorry. And we're thinking, well, if you've been married 20 years, what is she depriving you of? Really? I get to sleep on the couch where the TV and refrigerator are? Where you're not digging your toenails into my back? Really? Oh, man. And Al was the first person to say, sign me up for that.
How about?
And as radical as that seemed, because the character do that, yeah, that's not that uncommon. As the fan mail we eventually got showed. Peggy, we wanted to portray as, the quintessential stay-at-home, I watch TV from the minute you leave to the minute you come back, type of housewife. We wanted her to be the reason that Al is the way he is. But yet we did not want her to be weak, and take his and take his abuse without being able to hand it right back to him. And that was our way of showing that these two people really did care for each other. Neither one of them could be married to anyone else on the planet. It would not work. These two had to be married to each other because these two were the only people who could take it.
Let's stop there and change
Okay.
tape.
All right.